Anyway, this one. And whoever does not judge by what Allah has revealed is a kafir, is a disbeliever. Whoever does not judge by what Allah has revealed is a disbeliever. So, we have a group amongst us, Muslims, today, that has labeled the masses of Muslim rulers and leaders as disbelievers. They're not judging by what Allah has revealed. They're disbelievers. They're all kafirs. So it is halal, their blood is halal, we can go kill them, take their wealth and so on. So. And they've embarked on that road. They have made the blood of Muslims halal to them. And that's very serious. When the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Muslim, man salim al-muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadi. That the true Muslim is one from whose tongue and hands the Muslims are safe. That's a true Muslim. That Muslims should be safe from your hands and your tongue. And they're saying, your Muslim blood is halal to me. That is a big step. Big step. Why? Because you're not judging by what Allah revealed. And you work for those who don't judge by what Allah revealed. You support those who judge, so on, so on, so forth. So, of course, the verse does say that. But, as other scholars point out, this process of judging, is it only limited to rulers and people in offices? Or if you, as the head of a family, as we talked about last night, kullukum ra'in, each and every one of you is a shepherd responsible for his flock. If you in the affairs of your family, you don't do what Allah has revealed, are you not judging by other than what Allah revealed? Yes. If you make halal acceptable and doable things which Allah forbade, then you in your own family, you as an individual, even in your own decisions that you make, the choices that you make in your day-to-day life, when you decide to do something which is haram, right? You decide to get involved in a business which involves interest. You have your explanations, whatever. However, you have a whole set of explanations for it. But the point is that you know taking interest is haram. So when you go and establish a business based on interest, are you not judging? Are you not following a ruling which is against what Allah has revealed? So are you not then a judge, judging by other than what Allah revealed? Where does that put all of us then? Right? If we're going to take that explanation, then basically you could say the Ummah are all disbelievers. That's the bottom line. So, again, Ibn Abbas, he said, when he was asked about this, that it is kufr duna kufr. It's not the kufr that you're imagining, the kufr, the disbelief, which means you've become a disbeliever. You're out of Islam, finished. But it is a lesser level of kufr. Meaning what you're doing is doing the act of a kafir. It is an act of kufr. Not kufr in itself, but an act of kufr. Right? Meaning that not everyone who does an act of kufr is a kafir. These are what the kuffar do. The disbelievers judge by other than what Allah has revealed. That's their way. So when you do it, you are like them in that regard. But does it mean that your belief is like their belief? No, not necessarily. If your belief is like their belief, then it becomes complete. So this was kufr duna kufr. It may be an act of kufr. That act that you're doing is an act that the disbelievers do. But that does not necessarily make you a disbeliever, unless you accept it in your heart. And you believe it in your heart. That was our third rung. I think it's now time for your tea break. Right? So we'll just stop there. And when we complete the methodology of tafsir, then I will stop, allow you to ask some questions. So I know maybe some of you are already making notes for questions. I will give you a chance at that point. Okay? So we'll stop here now. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. الحمد لله رب العالمين
والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنة يوم الدين. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on the last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. As I had mentioned to you in the previous session about the tafsir of the book on Usul al-Tafsir by Yasir Qadi. This is the book itself. It's called An Introduction to the Sciences of the Quran. Right? This is on Ulum al-Quran. So this is the book. I think it is available in pirated versions and as well as the regular versions. And of course, it's always better to get the regular version than to get the pirated version. But if that's all that's available, then you do what you have to do. And I'm saying that knowing that virtually all of my books have been pirated and are available on the market here. Huh? So, in the previous session, we covered the first three rungs in the ladder of tafsir. Tafsir of the Quran by the Quran, tafsir of the Quran by the Sunnah, and tafsir of the Quran by the Sahaba. We're calling it just Athar, because the narrations of the Sahaba are referred to as the Athar. From Athar, which means a narrated bit of information. It could actually, the term Athar can actually refer to the Sunnah also, to Hadith. But it has been technically taken to refer more specifically to statements of the Sahaba. Now, I should just point out before going further that though we have put them in this order, Quran by Quran, Quran by Sunnah, Quran by the Sahaba, to say that you have understood the tafsir of the Quran by the Quran, and that's enough, because the Quran has explained itself. So now you're going to go and work with it. That is not enough, actually. We have put it in order of priorities as to where do you start. Not meaning that if you find one, you don't need the others. No, because after finding out what the Quran has how the Quran has explained itself, one still needs to look and see what did the Prophet ﷺ say regarding it. Because the Quran, when talking about dhulm, may use a variety of different explanations for what was intended by dhulm. So how do you know which of the Quranic explanations for dhulm to use? How do you know? Because Allah also says, وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّى حُدُودَ اللَّهِ فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. And whoever has transgressed the limits set by Allah has committed dhulm against himself. And that means any sin. So how do we know it's that one and not the one of Luqman? Quran by the Sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ, he clarified which of the Quranic meanings are we supposed to take. So you can't just stop at any one. And after understanding what the Prophet ﷺ said, then we still do need to look at the context, historical context in which that Quranic verse was revealed. How did the Sahaba apply it? Their application is going to give us further clarification as to the intended meaning of the verse. So we don't stop at any level. This is really a complete, the methodology of tafsir, this whole system here is a complete system which has to be taken in its entirety. There are cases where reasons for revelation cannot be found. So that's where you stop. If there are no hadiths, from the Sahaba, the Athar from the Sahaba to explain what they did, and the number of verses for which the context, historical context, have been explained by the Sahaba are not that many. Books have been written on it. They call these books Asbabun Nuzul. Asbab and Nuzul, meaning the reasons for revelation. Right? Books have been written on it. But when you look in those books, the number of verses, when we consider how many verses there are in the Quran, and then the number of verses mentioned there, it's only a fraction. So it has its own limitation. Right? And then we have also not just the historical context, but how did the Sahaba apply it? Following this, what we know of any language is that in time it changes. Languages change. As they come in contact with other languages, other cultures, that the influence of the other cultures will cause changes to the meanings of words. And Arabic is no exception. So what has happened is that as scholars began to compile texts which dealt with specific areas of Islamic knowledge and learning, the tafsir we said, then the hadith books were collected, right? The books on fiqh were being collected. At the same time, books on Arabic language were also collected. And these books we call dictionaries. Dictionaries were collected. And when you look at these early dictionaries, the format in which they come is the same format as hadith. When the writer, the compiler of the dictionaries, is giving the meaning of a word, he will bring a chain of narration to confirm, even though he was himself an Arab, in an Arab context. But because of the fact that the language had changed over the generations, he will trace it back to statements made by the earlier generation, closer to the time of the Sahaba, which clarified the meaning. Or he'll bring examples from Arabic poetry, ancient Arabic poetry, as proof that this is what this word, particular word, means. So, it became necessary, with the change of language, to compile narrations of the meaning, the dictionary meaning of the language. And this becomes now a source of explanation. This becomes a source of explanation for the verses. After we have looked at our first three methods, we now can look at the Quran according to the language. Tafsir of the Quran by the language. And we use that to clarify things which were known to the Sahaba. They didn't need to go there, because the Quran was revealed in their language. So it wasn't necessary. We who have come, many generations later, where the language has changed, now it is necessary for us to make sure that we know the dictionary meaning. And when we say dictionary meaning, we mean the classical dictionary meaning, not modern dictionaries. Right? This is important, right? Because you have, for example, a body of literature which seeks to attack the Quran itself. Since Allah said in the Quran, if you don't believe that this is from Allah, or if this was from other than Allah, you would find in it many contradictions, errors. So some Orientalists and missionaries have set upon the task of gathering the errors of the Quran. So they've gone, and you can find a website where they mention 101 errors in the Quran.
Right? Of course, when you actually go into it, you find out it's not errors at all, right? Because of course, if Allah had said that it is free from error, it is of course free from error. But they will bring, actually what they've done, they've actually gone to some of the classical Arabic texts, in which scholars explained apparently contradicting verses. Mushkil al-Athar, Mushkil al-Quran. You have texts which were put together by scholars in which they gathered hadiths which appeared to contradict each other, and verses which appeared to contradict each other. And then they explain them. So what they do, because of course this explanation is known to the scholars. To the average person, of course, they don't know, right? Now when you take these verses and then you put this verse in front of people, it's, it's contradicting. The average person, this can fool them. So that's what they've done. They've gone to these books, they pulled out these apparently contradicting verses, which have been explained by the scholars of the past, but which the average Muslim today has no idea. And then they put this up on the internet as errors in the Quran. Right? Among the things that they do is they will point out grammatical errors in the Quran. Right? Grammatical errors in the Quran. They will take verses where Allah will say, for example, وَقَالَتِ الرُّسُلُ. قَالَت, which means she said. The verse, قَالَت, means she said. And then it says, الرُّسُلُ, the messenger.